Welcome to Influence Matters. I'm your host, Clara Rose. Each week, I talk about crafting your message for the world or other matters of influence. Sometimes, of course, I do have a guest who's doing something that I think you might be interested in, and I'll bring them on. But either way, if you are building a business, ministry, cause, or brand, you are in the right place, my friend. Today, I actually don't have a guest. I'm going to talk with you about a topic that I get questions on a regular basis. So it's always good to just refresh, go back to the basics, or perhaps you are brand new at this author business, this writing business, and you just don't know some of these things. And that's what we're here to talk about every single week. Today, we're going to talk about best practices for titles. Now, it could be naming absolutely anything, but in my world, it's about naming your book. So the title of your book, the subtitle of your book, the title of each of the chapters. And I'm just here to say that titles matter, my friends. Titles are really super important. As a matter of fact, the very first thing that a person sees when they're looking at your physical book is the image, of course, the cover. They're going to see the cover, and that will either attract them or not attract them. But the title is the very next thing. That's your opportunity to capture the attention of a potential new reader. So ask yourself this question: how memorable is your book title? Now, if you're somebody famous, you can, of course, get away with being super clever or super odd. You can, do the purple cow thing, or you can name it something that's different. But if you're not already a very high profile person, it's really important that you have a good, solid title that's going to capture people's attention. Now, I find this happens often with the new authors that I bring in who've already started writing things, or they have been planning their book for a really long time, or trying to write their book for a really long time. So they'll come in with a preconceived idea of what they think the title should be about. For some of them, they have a connection to the title that's different than what the book's really about. It just has a meaning to them of sorts. And somewhere along the way, we have to work through all of the stuff and figure out, oh, that's not really entirely what my book is about. And we have to switch gears and change things, which is not a big deal as long as you haven't been telling people for 10 years that your new book that's coming out is called whatever it's called, right? So don't start yet talking about your title until you're well into the book creation process and you have been working with a professional to help you get really clear on titles. So today we're going to talk about how to get some clarity on your titles. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about when we talk about titles is they should be relevant. Titles need to be relevant. So, relevant is an acronym. And if you've followed me for any length of time, you'll see me using them because I love acronyms. They help you remember things, right? So, relevant stands for these things. It resonates with your reader. So you want it to make sense to the reader in some way. It resonates with them, your potential reader, the person you're trying to attract. It expands the possibilities of the book. It can't be about one tiny little piece of what the book's about. It has to encompass the entire book and even leave some room for expansion because I promise you, as you create your book, it's going to grow and expand. And then, of course, you're trying to leverage their interests. That's the L. You're trying to capture in a really super noisy, busy world. You're trying to capture somebody's few seconds that you get in passing as they see your title. You just have seconds to capture them. So you're going to leverage any interest that they may have. Now, if you're talking about wedding planning, people who are planning a wedding are going to see the word wedding. Now that's leveraging their interest. That's what I'm talking about. And then, of course, you need your book to echo your voice. For most people that I work with anyway, we are creating a book to use as a tool. And it's really important that that tool actually reflects and sounds like them, right? They're the author. They're the ones who has something to say, and you want it to echo their voice. So that's what the E stands for. And then, of course, value your story, how you fit into it. This really is most important in the kind of work that I do because I work with people who have a specific skill set or something specific that they do, and it needs to connect with them and their story. A good example in my own business is I work mostly with faith based authors. Not all of them are faith based, but mostly because that's who's attracted to me as a faith based individual. And so there's that value in the stories that connect us. That's what I'm talking about. And then, of course, our A is always be crafty, not corny. Never be corny. Crafty is great. Corny can make you go, rub some people the wrong way. And then, of course, timeless, not trendy. And by that, I mean it needs to be relevant for all time. It can't, don't get stuck in the beta max or right. I often laugh at the memes that I see on social media where there's some young person with a rotary telephone, right, trying to push the little holes. How do you make this thing work? They don't get it. That is not a timeless thing, right? So be aware when you're crafting your title, specifically the title of your book, that needs to be more timely. And then, of course, I always say this, it's worth saying again. A good title is a promise about the content that you're going to find inside. Just like the picture should reflect what it's about, the title really should. It's a promise. Here's what this book's going to be about. Here's what you're going to find inside. These are just the super important basics, and it will make your titles relevant. Okay, SMILE. Let's move on. SMILE is another acronym. So the 5 qualities of a super sticky name. Now you'll hear me talking about a few things that I'm actually going to give you a reference to a book at the very end. So make sure you stick around to find out the title of that book. She is absolutely brilliant at this. I've used her book for years to help people with the basics of titling things. I think her business titles businesses and things of that nature, but it's super helpful when you're titling your chapter and your book as well. So I use a lot of her acronyms. I like to give credit where credit is due, and these belong to her. SMILE. So the S in SMILE is suggestive. So evoke something about your brand or your book. So something suggestive about who you are, what you do. And then meaningful. Back to resonating with your audience, meaningful for the people you are trying to attract. Imagery. It's visually an aid for them to remember, right? So you want to, Purple Cow kind of does a good job of that. There's actually several books out there that I love that the imagery captures you so much and it helps you to remember. This one is also super important. She calls it legs, but it lends itself to a theme to extend mileage, right? It has legs. It's going someplace. It's maybe this is the first book in a series of books. Maybe this is a book that leads to a coaching program or some sort of other transformation, some sort of training program. We want it to have legs and do more than just one thing. Remembering we are creating a book to use as a tool, at least if you're working in my world. We don't do fiction, unfortunately. That's a totally different genre. In our world, we want legs on that puppy. And then finally, emotional. It moves people. We want to move people. We want to engage people. And people are just emotional beings by nature. That's the way we're created. So we want to tap into that emotional piece. That's how we're resonating with those people. Okay, enough on SMILE. Let's move on. Scratch. So we talked about what we should do. Let's talk about what we shouldn't do. So she calls them the 7 deadly sins. I don't know that they're sins necessarily, but these are things absolutely to avoid when you're creating your title. The first one is to not be spelling challenged. So if you spell a word wrong on purpose, it just looks like a typo. You might think, oh, I'm super clever, right? But really, it just looks like a typo. And you are making it so much harder for your potential reader to find you. right? Because you've spelled it wrong. Never mind the fact that this is the literary world and spelling something wrong is sort of a faux pas. We don't do that, right? So don't go with something spelled incorrectly. And then copycat. If it's too similar to a competitor, that's not good. And that's not good in a couple of ways. Number one, you don't want your book to be confused with somebody else's book when you're spreading the word about this amazing book that you've written and published, right? You don't want them going finding somebody else just because your name is too similar. Now, some people will try to do it to try and steal someone else's audience. And there are some things in place that help prevent that from happening. Now, you can't really copyright really a title, right? They're words, right? They're just a few words, in fact. But there are some publishing houses out there that won't even allow you to have a name so similar to somebody else's that it causes confusion for the people they care about, which is the reader, the consumer, the person actually doing the buying of the book. So if you are trying to get your book published, especially in the hybrid or self-publishing world, they won't let you publish a title that is too closely related and therefore will cause confusion to somebody else's already printed material. So, something to think about when you're trying to copycat or you're thinking of copycatting somebody. Restrictive. You don't want to limit your future growth, so don't make your name so restrictive. That goes back to the whole, maybe a series or you're trying to grow a business with it. And then, of course, annoying. We don't want to frustrate customers or annoy customers with the titles that we pick. We also don't want it to be tame. She says if it's too flat, uninspired, or undescriptive, that it's not going to go anywhere. I don't know that I 100% agree with her assessment on that. I think if you pair that nicely with a tagline or a subtitle, sometimes that can work. Anyway, that's just one of her recommendations. And then cure of knowledge. So it should make sense. Now, she calls it cure of knowledge. I just call it being smart about it, right? Don't use jargon. That's really what it is. If it only makes sense to you as an insider and people outside are not going to understand it, don't use it. It doesn't make any sense. And then hard to pronounce. This is a really big pet peeve for me. If it's not obvious or it's unapproachable, you will not recommend it to others. If people don't know how to say the name of your book, they're not going to recommend it because they don't want to look like an idiot because they said the title wrong, right? We're all human. We don't want to look uneducated or embarrass ourselves. So if we question how to say somebody's name, how to say a word, how to say a title, we just won't talk about it. We won't recommend it. So don't put yourself in that position by having something hard to pronounce. If it's your name, you can't help it. Okay, let's talk about, we're getting close to wrapping up, but let's talk about some savvy tips. You know me well. If you've been here before, I'm the savvy queen. I love to talk about being savvy. That's just being shrewd, having practical knowledge, right? So be shrewd be savvy. So here's some savvy tips for you as you think about naming your stuff. First of all, buy the domain name for your book title or subtitle if it's available. Now, we're kind of entering a time in life where it's tougher to find domain names that you can purchase, the .coms that you can purchase. You can purchase a whole bunch of other dot whatever extensions, but the truth is people are wired, conditioned for the .com. Right. So they're going to try that first without even thinking about it. So if it's a .net or there's like a ton of them now. And some of them like intrigue me. I'm like, ooh, .tv or .show or whatever. And I think I want that one. But in truth, people are going to go to the .com. If somebody else already owns that, you may lose that traffic. You may lose that person. So as you're looking at the title of your book, just go do a quick domain search. There's lots of places online that you can go look for them. They usually are not very expensive. And then just snap it up. If you're like me, I probably have about 50, but That's almost embarrassing, right? I just when I have a good idea, I think, "Ooh, that's good. That's gold." And I'll just hop on over and see if it's available. And if the .com is available, I'll just purchase it. Over the years, I've probably purchased hundreds of them. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't use them, and I just let them go. And that's okay. They're not very expensive. What are you going to spend 15 bucks on it? That's a small price to pay. If you think I'm going to name it this, and then you buy that .com and you end up not naming it that, totally not the end of the world. You've saved it just in case. So I will say don't pay too much. It's nice to have, but it's not a necessity. I have a great example of that. When I first started my business, pardon me, years ago, my very first publishing company. When I first rolled out Rosedale Publishing, I really bad wanted to buy rosedalepublishing.com, but they wanted $30,000 for it, right? They're like, whoever I was buying, GoDaddy, whoever it was, like, oh, this is a good one. And I wasn't going to spend $30,000. Don't pay too much. It's nice, but it's not a necessity. Now, all of these years later, I've been using Rosedale Publishing with my craftingyourmessage.com website, which is the direction I did go when I purchased my domain name. Now, last year, rosedalepublishing.com, I found it somewhere else and I got it for 12 bucks. And so I own it now. So would I have spent the $30,000 if I'd had it? Probably not. I don't think that's necessary. Don't get carried away spending a lot of money on that. If you can get it, great. If you can't get it, that's okay too. And then, of course, I recommend that you purchase common misspellings that your competitors might come along and snap up. If you become super popular, if your book just takes off, becomes wildly popular, you become a bestseller, there are people out there who will come along and try to steal some of your audience by buying a domain name and that's similar. I actually had this happen recently, last year sometime, to one of my authors who reached out and she's like, oh my gosh, Clara, you're not going to believe this, but someone's selling my book, but they're selling it under this slightly different name. So I did some research, dug in. They were selling it under slightly different name. It was super close. It wasn't actually her book. They had taken her book and written like a review-ish idea about her book, right? And so they were literally, and made it into an ebook. They were literally selling off of her book and pulling from her audience, oh, here's an ebook version the that I can get over here, not even realizing they weren't actually getting her book. She spends multiple millions of dollars on marketing her business, and her book is a part of it. And so she was super annoyed that somebody had pulled that off. So, all that to say, if there's a common misspelling for something, go ahead and snap the domain name up, and then someone else can't come along and take that from you. And then single topic pages are currently ranking well, and they are perfect, ideal to advertise your new book. So when you are snapping up that domain name and writing your book, be looking for how you can put a one page. If you've been here before, you know what I'm going to say, but a one-page website or landing page out to the world where you can put your book up for sale. Now, of course, sending them to Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, wherever to buy your book, that's fine because you're going to earn royalties on it. But the most money in your pocket, which I like to call author-centric, is when you sell it yourself. You buy it at author cost, you put it on your own website or landing page, and you sell it yourself at retail. Now, instead of the Amazon or whoever getting a piece of your pie, you're getting a bulk of your pie, if you will. If I sold my last book, I can buy it for $3.50 as an author. My author copy costs me about $3.50, but I can turn around and sell it for, $15 or $16 if I sell it myself. If I let Amazon or Books A Million, Barnes, somebody else sell it for me, they take a piece of my pie and I get like $2 per book off of it. So that's a big difference if you're looking at this from a business standpoint, which I, of course, am always looking at it because those are the people that I work with, right? I'm a business owner, entrepreneur. I work with business owner, entrepreneurs, professionals, right? We're creating a book to use as a tool. We would like it to generate some income. It also is going to generate leads and those other things. Yes, but it's a tool. The extra income is actually nice though. Okay. Lastly, on the helpful tips, I just want to say initials are hard to remember. Descriptive names are much better, even if they're a little bit longer. So think of things like Dollar Shave Club or, one of those .coms out there. The name's a little bit longer, but it's descriptive and people remember it. It's one of the reasons why back in the day I went with craftingyourmessage.com for my website because it's descriptive. It's super easy for people to remember and find me later. If I was to say, let's see, Rosedale Publishing, rdp.com, nobody's going to remember that, right? Even if it's just a few initials, you won't remember it. So keep away from the initials as a naming tool is just my advice to you. Okay, and then finally, let's talk about some last minute details and let's talk about the book that I'm recommending that you get if you need a little more assistance. So, just to recap, don't make them scratch their heads. We do want to make them wonder, right? But we don't want to confuse them by our title. And then don't make a promise that you can't keep. We always want to deliver. Don't say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire, and then get inside the book and you're not teaching them anything about being a millionaire. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't be around the bush and try to be all vague. We're there to address issues and make some sort of a transformation or difference in the life of our reader, right? We're not there to entertain necessarily, although some of my stuff I think can be entertaining, but we're there to solve a problem, deliver on something. We're going to address the issue directly. And then don't focus on the problem. I do see this too often, especially in the consulting, um, therapy world, for somebody who has come out of something. So if you've come out of something horrific or come out of something destructive and you spend half the book talking about that, really maybe you should have written a memoir instead, right? We're not there for that. We're there to talk about the solution. The story, how you got there, is important, right? Because we're connecting with people, but that's not the end all. The end all is that we're offering them a solution. I came out of this and I can help you do the same. You can too. Don't tug on emotions just for the sake of tugging on emotions. Don't tell sad stories just to make people cry. We do want to evoke the desired response from them, but we're not just trying to wreck them, right? Which is a great name for a great book, actually. Don't limit your options, expand your possibilities. We talked a little bit about that. And then don't be trendy, but to be timeless. We talked about that. And then don't be corny, but be crafty. Your title will be attached to your book for life. So please choose carefully, my friend. Okay, before I go, I do want to talk briefly about Alexandra Watkins' book, Hello, My Name is Awesome. That, my friend, is an awesome name, by the way. Her book cover, it's a quick read, but I highly recommend it. It's kind of an older book at this point, but super impactful in helping you understand about naming anything. She's not talking about naming your book. She's mostly working with companies who are naming businesses or products or launches. But I'm telling you, it is well worth the investment to grab this little book. You might be able to find it in audio if you're an audio person. I'm not sure. I haven't looked for it. I'm not an audio person. I'm a hold the book in your hand and smell it person. Absolutely, you can find it on Amazon if you need it. All right, my friends, there you have it. Some of the basics, best practices for your book titles, subtitles, etc. And of course, before I go, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the Savvy Author Program. If you are starting to write your book, you've been writing your book for a while and you're not having a lot of success, can't get it wrapped up, can't get it done, I want to invite you to hop over to craftingyourmessage.com and have a look at the Savvy Author Program. It is a group coaching program that you can participate in, and together we will work through all the pieces of getting your book out of your head and out to the world. And it really works because you have some professional guidance, right? And a proven process to follow. So we're going to help you create the right book, capturing your ideas, outlining the structure of your book, getting the writing done. Accountability is super important. How to format, understanding publishing, how to launch your book and get it out to the world. No matter where you are in your journey, the Savvy Author Program can help you to plan, write, publish, and launch your book. While you're there on the website, if that is not you, if you're not a group coaching kind of person, if you just need some help one-on-one, we offer ghostwriting services. You can learn more about those over at craftingyourmessage.com, where we do the heavy lifting for you and actually write the book for you, sounding just like you. Or if you'd like to co-write, we do offer co-writing where you get to do the heavy lifting. We just make sure that it's developmentally edited, formatted, and help you make publishing choices and either hybrid or self-publish your book. Okay, there you have it, my friend. Thank you so much for showing up every week to hear what I have to say. I look forward to being a part of your journey from dreaming about being an author to being a published author. Or if you're already a published author and you need to take it to the next level, maybe add that workbook or that journal or that companion piece that goes with your book. Or maybe it's time to turn that book into a series. Maybe you have an idea for another book. Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, we can help you with that. So don't forget to hop on over to craftingyourmessage.com and check out our services. And then while you're there, you'll see that you can contact us. You can either drop your message right in there, or you can make a little click over to my calendar and grab a spot on my calendar where we can actually talk one-on-one with what your project that you're trying to accomplish looks like and see if we're a good fit for you and you are a good fit for us. All right, my friend, I will see you next week, same time, same place. Take care.